June 28, 1944. The Norman sun hangs low over the shattered hedgerows outside St. Lay. A column of exhausted Wehrmacht soldiers from the 352nd Infantry Division trudges eastward under the watchful eyes of two bored American G.'s riding shotgun on a jeep. Their hands are bound with nothing more than bootlaces. The Americans, and out of proper ties, days ago. Oberleutnant Hans von Lüchow, once adjutant to a proud regiment, now limps at the front of the line. His field gray tunic is torn, his face streaked with 3 days of dust and cordite. Beside him marches Unteroffizier Karl Richter, a baker from Dresden who hasn't tasted real bread since 1942. They have just been told they are headed to a temporary cage near the beaches. Then rumor says across the ocean to America itself, at a crossroads. A Sherman tank rumbles past, its crew tossing empty Saracen cans into the ditch like confetti. One can still half full of Spam and beans bounces and rolls to Karl's boots. He stares at it, mouth working silently. An American sergeant riding on the turret notices, grins, and lobs an unopened can straight at Karl's chest. Here you go, Jerry, knock yourself out. Karl catches it instinctively. The label reads, pork luncheon meat. The weight feels obscene in his hands. Back home, his wife and daughter are living on 800 calories a day, mostly turnip soup and sawdust bread. He turns the can over and over, as if it might vanish. Hans whispers without looking at him, "Don't open it here. They'll think we're animals." But Karl is already peeling the key around the lid with shaking fingers. July 1944, Camp Aliceville, Alabama, first sight of the land of plenty. July 19, 1944. The train screeches to a halt under a merciless Alabama sun. Sweat pours down the necks of 3,000 German prisoners as they stumble out onto the red clay platform of Aliceville, Alabama. The air smells of pine and something impossible, fresh baked bread, a stockade of whitewashed barracks and barbed wire stretches before them. American guards in crisp khaki wave them forward with none of the brutality the men expected. Instead, a loudspeaker crackles in careful German. "Welcome to the United States. You will be fed, clothed, and treated according to the Geneva Convention." Karl Richter blinks in disbelief. He has not heard the word welcome directed at him in 5 years. Inside the mess hall that evening, long tables are set with real plates, metal, not tin, and actual silverware. MPs in white gloves ladle out portions, thick slices of roast beef swimming in gravy, mashed potatoes glistening with butter, green beans, corn on the cob, and a basket of soft white bread that steams when torn open. At the end of the line sits a mountain of apples, oranges, and impossibly a crate of Hershey bars. The first tray is placed in front of Jeffreiter Wilhelm Dorn, a wiry Saxon who survived Stalingrad on frozen horse meat. He stares at the food as if it might explode. An American sergeant walking the aisle notices and laughs. "Go ahead, boys." Seconds are in 10 minutes. Wilhelm's hand trembles as he lifts the fork. The beef is tender, the potatoes creamy. He chews once, twice, then stops. Tears run silently down his dust-caked cheeks. Around him, hardened veterans of France, Africa, and Russia begin to weep openly, some clutching the bread to their chests like children with toys. Karl, sitting across from Hans von Lüchow, watches an American private at the next table scrape half his meal into a garbage can and walk away whistling. Karl's fork freezes halfway to his mouth. "They throw it away," he whispers. "They just throw it away." Hans's aristocratic face is pale. "We are not in the same war anymore." Karl. August 1944. The garbage cans that broke the Wehrmacht's Spirit-August 12, containing 1944. Dawn roll call at Camp Aliceville. The temperature is already pushing 95 degrees Fahrenheit. When the prisoners are marched past the mess hall, refuse area on their way to morning work details, Karl Richter stops dead in his tracks, and the entire column behind him stumbles to a halt in front of the kitchen stand, 6 55-gallon drums overflowing with yesterday's leftovers. Whole loaves of white bread, some with only the crusts missing. Roast beef sliced thick enough to choke on. Mashed potatoes crusted over but still recognizably buttery. Half-eaten ears of corn and dozens of unopened cans of peaches in heavy syrup. Flies buzz lazily over the bounty. An American corporal in a stained apron is dumping another tray. Scrambled eggs mixed with bacon, barely touched. He notices the staring Germans and shrugs. Guys didn't like the eggs today. Too much pepper? Karl's knees buckle. A guard prods him forward, but not before he sees a colored kitchen worker scoop the contents of one drum into a slop wagon for the camp's hogs. The hogs. Eating better than Dresden schoolchildren. Evening in Barracks 14. The men gather in stunned silence. No one speaks of escape anymore. Instead, they trade whispered stories they have collected like contraband. Guard told them the average American civilian eats 3,200 calories a day, 4 times the German ration. The camp bakery uses more flour in a week than the city of Leipzig is allotted in a month. Prisoners working the nearby cotton fields watched American children throw away candy wrappers that still smelled of chocolate. Oberleutnant von Luko, who has maintained Prussian stiffness until now, sits on his bunk and stares at the Red Cross parcel he has just received. 11 pounds of real coffee, powdered milk, Spam, cheese, and most surreal, a full carton of Lucky Strike cigarettes. He finally speaks, voice cracking for the first time since 1940. Gentlemen, Germany is already dead. We simply haven't been told the hour of the funeral. October 3rd, 1944. Mail call in. Aliceville is the one moment the camp falls completely silent. Censors in Washington have already warned the camp commander. Letters from German POWs describing American food in detail are being intercepted by the Gestapo and are causing serious morale problems on the home front. From now on, every outgoing letter must be screened twice, and any mention of quantity or quality of food is to be blacked out. The prisoners quickly learn the game. Karl Richter writes to his wife Greta in Dresden. Tell the children that Papa now works in a place where the sun shines every day and the soil is so rich that even the weeds grow taller than our house. The people here are kind and give us everything we need. Do not worry about parcels anymore. Save the sugar for the little ones. Between the lines, every man in the barracks knows what he really means. Stop sending me sawdust bread. Your hunger is worse than mine. In another barrack, a former Africa Corps sergeant writes in careful script. The Americans waste so much that their pigs eat white bread and canned fruit. Imagine what our pigs would say if they ever saw it. The censor crosses out the entire paragraph, but the letter still reaches a village near Cologne. Within weeks, the story has spread through 3 provinces. The Americans feed their swine better than German children. Back in Aliceville, prisoners on kitchen duty now deliberately overcook huge batches of oatmeal just to watch it scraped into the hog troughs. They stand at the fence in silence as fat Alabama pigs root through mountains of food that would keep an entire Berlin tenement alive for a week. One evening, a young Jeff writer named Fritz Muller, 19 years old, captured at Cherbourg, climbs onto a crate during the nightly barracks discussion and shouts, "If this is how the enemy treats prisoners, what must their own soldiers eat? Chocolate bars for breakfast. Steak on the battlefield." 100 voices answer at once, yes. For the first time since 1939, the word victory is not spoken in that room. TLE men. Germany is already dead. We simply haven't been told the hour of the funeral. The news barely registers. Something far more shattering has already happened. That morning, the mess hall served ice cream. Real ice cream. Vanilla, thick and yellow with egg yolks, scooped into metal bowls and topped with Hershey's chocolate syrup. Every prisoner received a full pint. The Americans called it a little treat for Easter. Karl Richter stands in line clutching his bowl like a communion chalice. He watches an American private take 3 bites, grimace, and dump the rest into the garbage can. Karl walks straight to the can, stares at the half-melted mound of cream, and begins to sob, loud, broken. Animal sounds that echo across the compound. Within seconds, the entire line is crying. Grown men who survived El Alamein Kursk and the Falaise Pocket collapse to their knees in the Alabama dust. Weeping over wasted ice cream, guards look away in embarrassment. Even the camp dogs stop barking. That afternoon, Oberleutnant Hans von Lüchow does something no one expected. He walks to the commander's office, requests pen and paper, and writes a formal letter addressed to the International Red Cross in Geneva. He signs it with his full name and rank. I hereby declare on behalf of myself and the men under my moral authority that the war is lost beyond any hope or illusion. The material superiority of the United States is so overwhelming that further resistance serves only to prolong meaningless suffering. We place ourselves entirely at the mercy of the American people, whose generosity has shown us the true measure of our defeat. The letter is never sent. The camp commander quietly locks it in a drawer. But word spreads through every barracks by nightfall. 2 weeks later, on May 8, 1945, the loudspeaker announces the unconditional surrender of Germany. There is no cheering in Camp Aliceville, only silence, and the soft clink of spoons against bowls as 3,000 former soldiers finish second helpings of peach cobbler. The war ended for most of them the day they watched ice cream slide into a garbage can while their families starved under Allied bombs. They had seen the future, and it was too large to fight. Epilogue, 1946 to 1948. Going home to a country that no longer existed, summer 1946. The troop ship USAT George W. Goethals steams up the English Channel toward Bremerhaven. Karl Richter stands at the rail with 2,000 other repatriated POWs, each clutching a cardboard Red Cross box containing the clothes they wore when captured, cleaned, pressed, and smelling faintly of Alabama sunshine. For 2 years, Karl has eaten 3 full meals a day, gained 30 pounds, learned passable English, and worked on a farm outside Mobile for $1 a day in scrip. He has not gone hungry once. Now he is returning to a Germany where the average civilian ration is still 1,200 calories, where Dresden is a moonscape of rubble, and where his wife Greta and their 2 daughters live in one room of a half-collapsed apartment building. The night before Decembercation, the former prisoners gather on deck. Someone starts singing Lily Marlene. Within seconds, every voice joins in, but the song dies halfway through. No one can remember the words past the first verse anymore at Bremerhaven. They are marched past British and American soldiers handing out coffee and donuts. Karl takes one donut, bites, and nearly vomits from the sweetness. His stomach, accustomed to abundance, now rejects it. Greta is waiting behind the wire with their daughter's thin, pale eyes too large for their faces. When Karl steps forward, Greta does not run to him. She simply stares at the healthy, suntanned man in front of her and whispers, "You are fat." Karl drops the Red Cross box. Inside are cans of Spam, Nescafe, and a full carton of Lucky Strikes he saved for her. Greta looks at the cans, then at her husband, and begins to cry not from joy, but from the unbearable distance that 2 years of American plenty have carved between them. Years later, in the 1950s and 60s, whenever old comrades meet in Munich beer halls, they do not speak of tanks or battles. They speak of Aliceville, of roast beef and butter running in rivers, of ice cream thrown to pigs, and of the day they understood long before Berlin fell. That the war had already been lost in the garbage cans of Alabama. Some of them still wake at night from the same dream, standing before a mountain of white bread, reaching out, and watching it vanish into the mouths of hogs while their children back home eat wallpaper paste. That was the moment the Third Reich truly ended, not with a bang in a Berlin bunker, but with the quiet scrape of a spoon against a metal bowl in a prisoner of war camp. While a 19-year-old boy cried over wasted vanilla ice cream under an Alabama sun,